Durant has a sprained MCL that will sideline him up 4 to 6 weeks. And a fun stat, ever since the Big Three got formed out there in Brooklyn, do you realize they have only played 16 games together? Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant, and James Harden. 16 games together on the court. That is insane. They've been together for over a year. When James Harden was first acquired, that was when Kyrie just went MIA on them. And then right as they started getting into the playoff run, Kevin Durant popped the hamstring, James Harden popped the hamstring, Kyrie messed up his ankle. Here we are in 2021, 2022 season. Kyrie has his vaccinations battle. And now here we are with Kevin Durant and a knee injury. So does this hurt the long-term projections of the Brooklyn Nets for them to not really have any continuity? I mean, 16 games in almost a year of playing together.
I would like to say the funniest part about all of this is that if not for Kevin Durant having one shoe size too large, they're going to the NBA championship through all of that, because just by having Kevin Durant on your team, you already have a chance of making it to the finals. It's weird how that works out. It's like the only move that actually makes an impact in the NBA in the middle of January is injuries. Like, injuries are the only thing that matters in doing NBA analysis until you get close to the playoffs. Like, everyone tried to convince me the Chicago Bulls were a legitimate championship team, and now they're just getting blown out by all the actually good teams as they fall to like fourth in the conference. Like, we know who the good teams are. We know who the championship contenders are because we know who the best players are. And Kevin Durant getting hurt is like one of the only 5 players getting hurt that actually changes all of the math on the NBA standings at this point. So yeah, this really stinks for Brooklyn. It doesn't matter what seed Brooklyn gets, but the fact that Kevin Durant has another injury is something that is noteworthy and newsworthy, because the entire construct of that team relies on Kevin Durant being healthy and being able to be Kevin Durant, who puts up 49-point triple doubles against the Milwaukee Bucks with no James Harden and no Kyrie Irving. So yeah, I think this really does matter. I know it's not like they're projecting him to miss 3 or 4 months, and it's not like a catastrophic injury, but yeah, no, this is a moderately big deal, because Kevin Durant being out is like DEFCON 9 for the Brooklyn Nets, who, as we found out this week, might not be together much longer.
Little pushback here. Chicago is still actually the number 1 team in the Eastern Conference as of this time in the standings on January 19th as we record. But the Brooklyn Nets, it does worry me though. I mean, one injury can lead to multiple injuries, and it's not like the other 2 guys are sure things to not get injured themselves. If we already know that Kevin Durant is out 4 to 6 weeks, with more minutes on Kyrie, with more minutes on James Harden, and both James Harden and Kevin Durant were top 5 in minutes anyway in the NBA, doesn't that expose them a little bit more for the possibility of injury? And not to mention here, Kyrie Irving is still not playing home games, and it doesn't look like he's going to be playing home games the rest of the season. So we act like Kyrie Irving's back, but he's not really back. And if Kevin Durant has this injury or another injury related to this injury linger into the playoffs, then you're just down to James Harden then? Talk about a potential for failure if you're the Brooklyn Nets in assembling this team, hoping you can win a championship, and then falling on your face because of injuries doing it.
It's so amazing that if the Golden State Warriors had just not actively hated each other, they could have won championships for like 8 years straight in the NBA. They could have dominated that sport for as long as they wanted with Kevin Durant and Stephen Curry being on the same team together. It's really fascinating, because now you have this weird fracture of the NBA where we don't have a super team anymore in the sport. The sport is more interesting when there is a super team, a once in a lifetime opportunity for Kevin Durant to join the Warriors just because the NBA's salary cap went up because of the new television contract, allowed the Warriors to build that team together. And now that all of the stars are on different teams and you don't have 2 of the generational talents in the NBA on the same team at the same time, it makes it so that one injury actually does change the math here. Not to Kyrie Irving, even though that Kyrie Irving refusing to get vaccinated matters. But like we were saying back in November, like they can still win with or without Kyrie Irving. They're still the best team in the Eastern Conference with or without Kyrie Irving, because Kevin Durant and Giannis are both generational superstars. And James Harden is better than anything that the Milwaukee Bucks can put forward. And those are the only teams that can compete with, are the Milwaukee Bucks and what I presumed at the time was the Lakers, and now is looking more like the Warriors and maybe the Suns, probably not the Suns, but maybe the Suns can compete with Brooklyn. So they can live without that, but they can't live without Kevin Durant, which again, I'm taking a long time to say something very simplistic. It's like without Kevin Durant, the Brooklyn Nets are ridiculously screwed. And yeah, Kevin Durant's now in his third year in Brooklyn. And the fact that Brooklyn hasn't won they could win it this year and silence everything. But the fact that Brooklyn hasn't won a championship, and there's the possibility James Harden might leave this offseason now, which is incredible because it feels like he just got here 12 months ago. I think it was 12 months ago last week he got to Brooklyn. It is kind of interesting to think about because Brooklyn only exists because Kevin Durant decided he didn't want to play for the Warriors anymore. And with or without a championship doesn't make it a success or a failure. It's just that Brooklyn compromised as a front office and an organization all of their morals and all of their principles to make this happen. They gave all of the power to those players, let them essentially run the organization just for the chance to win that championship, or at least compete for that championship. And yeah, if in 2 years they don't get it, kind of shocking, but also kind of shocking that they might only get a 2-year run with Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving and James Harden together.
What would be a bigger failure in Nets franchise history? The KG Paul Pierce trade in the early part of the 2010s, or if they failed to win a championship with this iteration of the Brooklyn Nets?
I think the stakes are probably higher on this one because as much as that Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce, Jason Terry trade looks really, really bad in hindsight, like Brooklyn did really, really well for themselves. Like Sean Marks essentially started with nothing. He lost the draft pick that became Jason Tatum, the draft pick that became Jaylen Brown. Like he lost all of, I think the draft pick that became Terry Rozier might have also been in there, but
Colin Sexton as well was involved in that mix because the Celtics.
That's right. Yeah.
For Kyrie Irving.
That's the one I was thinking of too. Yes. The Colin Sexton pick also going away. Like they gave up a lot in that, but ultimately I've mapped this out before is like, because they didn't have any draft picks, they were willing to get draft picks by taking on other teams' terrible contracts. So they took on DeMary Carroll from the Toronto Raptors, and that turned into Caris LeVert. They took on Mozgov's contract from the Lakers and got D'Angelo Russell in exchange for that one. And then D'Angelo Russell ultimately flipped into Kevin Durant afterwards because Durant decided he wanted to play there, and they put themselves in the cap position to do that. So they turned nothing into James Harden is the way I'm going with this. Like they flipped another player to get the pick that became Dazana Musa, who is part of the trade going the other way to the Rockets. And they got Jarrett Allen as another one of those salary dump picks as a pick swap with the Celtics. So one of those picks, they pick swapped with the Celtics and got Jarrett Allen, and then traded Jarrett Allen to get James Harden. So basically their ability to get James Harden was all of the work that they did during those 4 years that they stunk. They put themselves in a position to flip that and all of their draft picks for the next 7 years to get James Harden. And then Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving decided they wanted to go there. So I'm going to say not winning a championship with this team is probably more disappointing only because the stakes are larger than, oh no, you don't get Colin Sexton, Jason Tatum, and Jaylen Brown, which stinks. But as we're seeing right now, would kind of be like the 6th seed in the Eastern Conference or the 5th seed in the Eastern Conference.